Welcome back to the Disruptive Innovation Festival, the world's largest online festival of ideas that asks the question, what if we could redesign everything? We've reached the penultimate day of the DIF. It's been an amazing DIF 2017. We've had about 190 sessions so far, only 10 to go. But don't worry, we've still got some great treats in store for you. And of course, you can catch up with everything you've missed. My name is Nick Jeffries. I work for the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And one of my key roles at the foundation is to answer the question, but what does the circular economy actually look like? I try and identify companies, projects, initiatives that are regenerating natural capital, designing out waste, and keeping resources in loops, and then share them with our different audience groups so they can learn about innovative new approaches, understand challenges, and get inspired to be more circular themselves. And that's basically what today's session is about. We're going to explore the circular economy via case studies. Now, every great journey needs good travelling companions. And today I'm lucky to have as my Sam Gamgee, right here in the DIF studio, circular economy encyclopedia, poet and pillar of the Isle of Wight community, Mr. Seb Egerton-Reid. Hey Seb, nice to have you here.
Hi Nick, that's probably the first time I've been called Sam Gamgee or sort of referred to as an expert at the DIF, even though I've been here for 400, 500 plus sessions probably. So
well, clearly people just don't want to embarrass you.
No, thanks for that.
So Seb is going to be showing us with some of his all-time circular favourites. He's been with the foundation for about 4 or 5 years, and so he has a good knowledge. But he'll also be funneling questions in from the audience. So have you had a good DIF so far?
It's been another wonderful DIF, and it's sort of great when you're at this point and you're looking back and you're thinking about all the amazing sessions we've had on these really big topics we're discussing: age of automation, future of design, 21st century economics. So yeah, I've had a fantastic DIF, and I hope the audience at home have enjoyed it as much as we have.
And I hear you interviewed Martin Scorsese's buddy.
We had a session with Jonathan Taplin called Move Fast and Break Things. It's a book about technology monopolies. He was the tour manager of Bob Dylan in the 1960s, helped produce the film Mean Streets with Martin Scorsese. Actually, just the week after I interviewed him, I managed to interview one of Woody Allen's old. But
mate, come on, stop name dropping here. We don't need that. So
give me the famous ones, Nick.
Yeah, I did. I actually caught that first session that Seb was talking about. It was a brilliant session. If you want to learn more about the PayPal mafia, surveillance capitalism, and something very Black Mirror-esque called Sesame Social Credit from China, then find it on Catch Up. What's it called again?
Move Fast and Break
Things. It makes for some really compelling and at times quite startling viewing. So before we get stuck into this session, remind our audience about participation.
Absolutely. So we really want your questions, we want your comments, your feedback. This is the DIF, that's what it's all about. And there are 3 main ways in which you can do that, and I'll take the questions from those 3 main ways and feed them into my discussion with Nick. The first one is by using the comments feature underneath the video stream on the DIF session page. Might be a 1 or 2 click process, but it's called Discus and it's there. If you've already made your way to the YouTube channel, use live chat. There's a live chat feature there, and you can also tweet us using #ThinkDiff.
Thanks, Seb. Audience engagement is the real power that keeps the DIF going, so I really encourage you just to get engaged. So now, as I said, we are embarking on a journey of discovery today, and what does every journey need? A map. So our map for today is the circular economy diagram, what we call the butterfly diagram. Hopefully we'll get it up on the screen soon. By the way, we've pasted the link to this map into the comments area under the session page. So if you want to sort of refer to it, as this session unfolds, please, copy that link into a URL. But this is our map for today. The central axis of the map is the linear economy, the take, make, dispose economy. Let's call it our east coast, our east hemisphere is the technosphere. This is stuff that you use, things like washing machines and phones and technical stuff. And I mean, and the key purpose of the technical cycle is to keep these things in use, keep your products and materials and your components and your materials in use. On the west coast, we have the biosphere, things that you consume, food, organic matter, and the key here is to return the nutrients back into the biosphere, and along the way you can cascade out lots of valuable stuff. And so we have the linear economy, and these two spheres, these two coasts, turn it into the circular economy. Seb, do you have any travelling aids for today?
Nick, what's a map if you don't know what direction you're going in? So I brought with me my compass, which is the 4 circular economy building blocks, which is, we need new design, radical new design, circular design. We need new innovative business models to make the most of that design. And obviously, if we've got new designs and new models that are trying to keep these materials and products and components in loops, we're also going to need new methods of reverse logistics. And to make all of that work, we need the right enabling system conditions. So we've got our 4 building blocks. I'm sure we'll be mentioning those along the way.
Excellent. So we have our map and we have our compass. I think we're ready to start exploring. Actually, all this talking has got me a little bit bit thirsty. Do you fancy having a drink?
Yes, that'd be nice, Nick.
Okay.
Thank God you've got some next to your chair.
There we are, mate.
Thanks, mate. Oh, they're cold.
Yes, they've just come out of the
You're
fridge
refrigerating
literally
these, have
5
you?
minutes ago.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Cheers, everyone.
Where's this going, Nick? Are you just trying to get me pissed, or is there a point to this?
Well, there is that, but there is a point. There's a little circular economy story behind this this fine ale. It's called Toast Ale. Did you know that 31% of all food that is produced is just thrown away?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and you can work for bread. We're talking about 44%. So 44% of all the bread that comes from bakeries through sandwich shops and all, just gets discarded. So this little startup from London, actually it started by a guy called Tristram Stewart, who's a food waste avoidance guru. They looked at this and thought, we could probably do something with this. And they turned it into a lovely beer. And it's actually it didn't have to change the process that much, because bread is malted barley anyway, pretty well. And so all they did is they just replaced 30% of the malted barley that otherwise and then replaced it with bread. And in doing so, they've got a very, very successful beer now. They've found a value for what was previously a waste stream, and also reduced emissions associated with food waste and other environmental impacts.
It's a very nice tasting beer.
It's a very nice tasting beer.
Beer from bread.
Exactly. And actually, beer for bread is historically one of the earliest recipes for beer. It was found on a clay tablet 3,000 years ago. It sets out a recipe that includes used bread.
I know you like your history, Nick. I'm sure we're going to be coming back to a few historical references during the next 40 minutes.
We know what they say. There's no best before date for ancient wisdom. So, Seb, are you more of an East Coast or West Coast kind of guy?
Well, as you know, Nick, my mum was born in Boston, so I'm an East Coaster.
You're an East Coast man, yeah?
Yeah.
But are you into the techno sphere anyway, or is it just...
I have an appreciation for all parts of this beautiful economy picture you painted us, but I guess I'm an East Coast techno guy.
All right. So
the modern techno guy.
So give me a couple of your favourite examples from the East Coast.
That's great. So I've actually brought a couple of examples with me.
Oh, that's uncanny.
So, introducing Splosh. The traditional model for buying our household detergents, our washing up liquids, is that we buy them almost weekly in some cases, off the shelf, big plastic bottle, all that liquid we're transporting around, it's been transported to the shop, it gets transported back to our house. And a guy called Angus Graham was looking at this from an e-commerce perspective, and actually what he ended up doing in redesigning that was in creating something completely different from that model of selling washing up liquids and things like that. So what we have here is Splosh, which they sell you a starter pack, and what that contains is bottles like this, which are far more durable and much thicker than the regular washing up bottle. And then they provide you with little sachets of liquid.
Oh, nice. And that's concentrated,
That's
I guess,
concentrated liquid, and all you do is you pop that liquid into one of these bottles, add a warm water, and you have a liquid that is, same performance metric as any other kind of washing up liquid. And what's beautiful about it, I guess, is that once you've got the starter box, you can use this 20, 25 times more times, which can cut down on like sort of 95% plastic packaging waste savings, and you're not transporting large amounts of liquid around. So these sachets can be mailed to you, posted through your letterbox whenever you need them. It's a subscription model, so it's catered to the needs of the user.
Yeah, and it's a more durable bottle, so it perhaps uses more material. So it's a bit counterintuitive. You use more material for the initial bottle, but then in 20 use cycles, you actually save a lot of material. Yeah?
Exactly. If you actually feel this, it's very thick and very sturdy and durable. More material in there, but we're not talking about incremental innovation here. We're talking about redesigning the entire business model around a product. So that's Splosh, which is a lovely example from our technical cycle in terms of household cleaning products.
But that's here, and that's design, and that's business models as well. Yeah?
And obviously the logistics element is there as well.
Of course.
Then, so we're going to stay in the...
That's beautiful.
This is actually a familiar product to the Diff. We had the designer of this product on the Disruptive Innovation Festival last year. It's called an Athentes, and it's another way of... So it's almost demonstrating the fact that there are multiple solutions to the challenges of creating effective circular economy models. So this is a redesign of a shampoo bottle. And what the designer of this observed is that shampoo bottles are traditionally made of a couple of different materials. Often the main bottle is made of one kind of plastic, and then they've got a cap or a lid that isn't particularly easy to detach, at least in the sort of recovery phase, that's made of another type of material. And all of that makes it very hard to recycle any sort of high quality value. So what they've designed is a product that's made of one type of material, and what you have here is a little thing, which is both a dispenser. It's like a spout. The whole thing looks a bit like a swan neck. And
it looks very biological. It looks sort of almost biomimicry.
I mean, it's quite deliberately designed, I think, to look appealing and to provoke conversation. And then, of course, the bottom comes off, so it's completely refillable as well. So a redesign mechanism, and of course, the whole thing is recyclable. That's an Athentes, and that was designed by someone called Marilu Valente. And then I'll give you one more example while we're on this technical cycle, and that's of bundles. So we're all familiar with washing machines. We all need to use washing machines. Normally we'll buy a washing machine and we'll have to take it probably to the tip at the end of its life after
4,000 cycles.
Yes, exactly. Dragged it out and become dissatisfied with it. And bundles sort of identified an opportunity here, an opportunity to introduce a very different pay-per-use model for this technology. And it works in two separate ways. On one hand, they're able to provide a subscription-based model that is catered to the needs of the user. And so the user gets the best possible washing machine for what they need in terms of their clothes. And on the other hand, they're able to, rather than selling a 10,000 or 5,000 cycle washing machine once, and they are able to sell higher end washing machines, they get multiple cash flows for this same washing machine. So they create a sort of mobile phone-esque contract for washing machines. And the whole thing is sort of enabled in some ways by Internet of Things, digital technology, where they can monitor both the performance of the machine and the use habits of their customers to create an even more optimized service.
Yeah, optimized. That's exactly. What I thought. Okay. So they can sort of see maybe a user takes a particular contract, and then they'll collect data over a month, 2-3 months ago. Actually, if you took this other contract, you'd be getting more value for money.
Exactly.
And they also get information from the machine itself about energy consumption, water consumption, detergent consumption, just to optimize it across the board.
Yeah, individual machines for individual customers, and of course it's all, since it's IoT, it's all quite automated. So there's three of my favourite examples from the tech cycle, which I think what's great about those is they kind of emphasise the diversity of different solutions. What about you, Nick? I know you're a bit of a West Coast guy.
I'm more of a bio kind of guy, actually. Yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in the technical cycle.
And I like your bio solutions.
Yeah, I thought you might. Yeah, so my two good examples from the bio cycle, the West Coast. So first one's from farming. I'm quite fascinated by this this type of farming called integrated multi-species agriculture.
That's a lot of words.
It's a lot of words, I know, but let me unpack that a little bit for you. So this is quite small scale farming, where you look at your farm as an ecosystem. So you don't have one crop or one livestock. You sort of mix up a whole load of crops and livestock, and they are sort of integrated and they work together. It's very compact and it's very effective with its use of resources, its use of nutrients and water and energy. And so one of my favourite examples of integrated multi-species agriculture comes from Japan. There's a chap called Tako Furano. He was a rice farmer, and he had about 4 hectares of paddy field. I realised that each year he was harvesting his rice, and he was sort of doing okay, but he had to put all these inputs in. It was quite labour intensive, and so he thought about it a little bit. And what he did was he thought, ducklings can help me out here. As you will. It just came to him, ducklings. And so what he did is, each year, having planted the seedlings, he introduced ducklings in. And the ducklings, of course, go mad for the snails. Snails are, one of the big pests of the rice seedlings. But he needed something else. He needed something for nitrogen, because the ducklings also produce, feces. They poo, so that provides one of their nutrients. But he also needs nitrogen, and so he allowed and encouraged this weed called azolla weed to grow in the paddy fields. And these azolla weeds are like a legume. It fixes nitrogen, but you don't want it to grow too big, because otherwise it will take the resources away from the rice. So he also introduced a fish called loach. And the loach makes sure the weeds are kept small. They also poo as well, and so you get this very, very rich sort of nutrient soup. And so for excess nutrients, he planted vegetables and fruits, especially figs, sort of around the sides. And so what he did, basically he completely cut his costs in terms of inputs. He no longer needed artificial fertilizers or artificial pesticides, but he also created multiple revenue streams. So, before he just could sell rice. Afterwards, he could sell rice, duck meat, duck eggs, fish, vegetables, fruits.
So you created the perfect little system. I guess members of the audience might be listening to this beautiful description. They might be asking, why is this not happening in more places and at greater scales? Why is it such a unique example?
Well, I think this particular type of farming, works at small scales. Yeah, so sort of maybe sub 5 hectares, sub 10 hectares. And I think we need more systems like this. In Vietnam, they have this very ancient system. We talked about ancient wisdom earlier. For about thousands of years, they've had this thing called Vuan Ao Chong, which means orchard, pond, pigsty. And the principles are exactly the same. These 3 sort of growing areas work together. The waste from one becomes, the input to others. But at a larger scale, the sort of, 1,000 acre, 1,000 hectare plus, perhaps different systems are required. And indeed, I think regenerative agriculture is a good example of what that system could look like. And there are plenty of examples around the world of that. And for me, the core of regenerative agriculture is forget about yields. The yields will come. Focus on the soil. Soil is the most important thing. And as I say, so I think for the bigger scales, we need a sort of slightly different system. But I guess the principles are the same. The farm is part of a larger ecosystem, and it needs to work with that ecosystem.
And what you're describing is a real, as you mentioned, a real alternative to what we're seeing today of I guess, large-scale monocropping, single crops. Hit them with as much nutrition, often artificial nutrition, as you can, and the negative effects of this have been quite well documented in terms of 50 years of topsoil left.
It's just a linear
system. Huge issue.
You're stripping nutrients away, and the nutrients are being thrown away, and then you're putting expensive new ones on, stripping them away, putting them on. Yeah, so, and it makes business sense. This guy, Tako Furano, his revenue each year from his 4 hectare plot is about the same as a 300 hectare commercial farm. So it just makes business sense. So anyway, that's my farming example. The other example from the bio cycle I like is it's actually it's a structural example, structural materials. So mushrooms, it's a passion of mine. The kingdom.
We all like mushrooms,
the
Nick.
fungi kingdom. Yeah. Do you know, last year they found a mushroom in Colorado that was 4 square miles in size and 9,000 years old.
Sounds like Day of the Mushrooms.
It's fascinating things. I mean, and for years, well, for millennia, they've been giving the human race food, medicines, all kinds of things. So there's a company in it's actually just outside New York called Ecovative that have. So they've taken mycelium. Mycelium is the sort of thread-like material found underground. The mushrooms are the sort of
Is it like the roots of the
It's
mushrooms?
the roots. It's kind of the roots. So it's thread-like, and they've taken this mycelium, and they've taken agricultural waste. So this is waste, non-food waste, things like corn husks, rice husks, sawdust, and they've seeded this agricultural waste with this mycelium, put it in moulds, and they've grown packaging. Actually, I've got an example here. Packaging material.
So what you're saying, that there is effectively mushroom.
This is agricultural waste bound together with mushroom mycelium, with basically mushroom glue.
And what does it feel like, Nick?
Have a feel.
Describe it. So it's sort of very styrofoamy, I guess,
Yeah,
but more solid perhaps, not flaking away, much more powerful and durable.
Well, actually, it can be very durable. The first time they created this material, they built a tea house in a place called Dresden, and they described it as bulletproof. The guy who was working the material, he broke several of his wood saws. So if you can actually create very, very hard material. And last year, Arup and Ecovative, they collaborated on a project, and they built a tower in New York. It's a 50-foot high tower in York. So they say packaging materials, furniture they've grown. But as long as you get the shape of the mould of the product you want, you can grow anything.
So it's incredibly diverse. You've got something that that's that size, then you have something that could be a piece of furniture. It could be
Well, check this out.
A building.
They've even done leather. And I know you like leather trousers.
Well, you know me very well, Nick.
This is hot off the press. This is 2-3 weeks ago.
What, my liking leather trousers?
No. The leather trousers obviously goes back many years.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've now even grown fabrics.
Well, I want a pair of these as soon as possible. But
they're very soft, very silky.
There's something about this that seems like it sort of aligns a little bit with the way nature works. So we've had speakers on at the DIF, including Alicia Garmalevich, talking about a number of polymers that can be used to make lots and lots of different things within nature. They make, I think it's like 5 or 6 polymers in nature, something very surprisingly small number. And here we have material, which is essentially, mushroom bound or mycelium bound, and we've got 3 hugely different functions with furniture as well, built environment, packaging, and fabrics or leather.
Yeah,
it's incredible. So,
absolutely,
Nick, we've got our first question.
Have we?
The audience
about time.
The audience are out there. Please do keep them coming in. Use that comment space below the video stream or hashtag ThinkDiff or the live chat on the YouTube channel. So the question that's come in from Jerry is, can you give me a good example of the sharing economy? But here's the challenge. You are not allowed, absolutely not allowed to mention Uber or Airbnb.
Ooh.
It's a good question.
So this is good. I think this might be one of
It's
yours.
an East Coast.
I think it's an East Coast, yeah. So we need an example of business which fulfills the key aim of the sharing economy, which is just bringing to use underutilised assets. Seba, this one's yours, mate.
Do you have a toolbox at home, Nick?
I do. I keep it in my shed.
Yeah. I, not so long ago, moved into my first, house, and one of the first things you end up doing is I went to B&Q, which is a British retailer, and bought a toolbox full of tools. And I'll be honest with you, I know there's a hammer in there, and I know there's a few different screwdrivers, but I expect it's quite dusty underneath my kitchen sink. It's an emergencies only.
You don't use it much, yeah?
I don't use it much. And it turns out that a couple of friends in Canada noticed exactly the same thing. And they started this sort of initiative in their basement where they would collect tools and share them out amongst the community on a subscription basis. So they charge the subscribers to this tool library in Toronto, pay $55 a year, and they can access the tools for up to 4 days. So that toolbox, so it gives you the same accessibility as the toolbox that's under your sink or in your garage or in your shed. You still have access to the tools, but you don't have to own them, which saves you a bit of money. And also, think about the resource use. You and I own toolboxes that we don't use. Sorry to infer that on you. Maybe you're a real DIY man, I don't know. But a lot of people like me potentially have toolboxes they don't use, all the materials, all the energy that's gone into creating those, when actually we don't need that. And that business is actually, from that basement, it's evolved into a business where they have 3 locations now, and they've gone on to sharing things like camping and sports equipment. So it's a model they've been able to upscale across a number of different opportunities.
And the bonus, you get to free up a bit of space from underneath your kitchen sink as well.
Exactly. What could you put under there?
So it's
Maybe
a win-win
just have a bit of
situation.
space.
Yeah. So you free up space, you get more tools. I mean, roughly how many tools in the library?
There's hundreds and hundreds of tools available in this library, and probably the diversity and range of tools is far exceeds what I have in my toolbox at home, at least.
And you're just paying a sort of
and
a
you
set
just pay
amount.
$55 a year.
Yeah, that's a great example.
My toolbox probably costs more than that.
I heard a stat somewhere. I think the average drill only gets used for 13 minutes in its lifetime.
Well, my drill has not yet been used that 13 minutes.
You're still in the first minute, yeah?
I'm a little bit further under that.
Excellent. Right, I think we've probably got some more questions coming in, but do you think we ought to remind people what else is going on in the diff world?
Well, yeah, before we carry on, this is the Disruptive Innovation Festival, the world's largest online festival of ideas. And even though, as Nick mentioned at the start, we've only got 1 full day of the lineup left to go, there's still plenty to watch. And I just want to point a few things out to you. So at 6 o'clock, right after this session, we've got Carl Vines from iFixit, and he's talking about the right to repair, vision for circular electronics. So looking at some of these inner loops that we've been talking about and thinking about how our products are made, the rights of individuals to repair them, and focusing on electronics. If you've not seen or you have seen Carl before, you should know he's very entertaining and definitely a must-watch session. And then tomorrow, if you're interested in the circular economy and case studies and new thinking, at 11 o'clock, we've got the Circular Design Case Finale. The Circular Design Case is a circular design challenge of some kind that we've been putting out to the diff, young designers who are viewing the diff. And we ask them to think about everyday products like toothbrushes differently. Toothbrushes, pens, markers, anything with plastic, a little bit of plastic or fibre in it. And so people have been drawing and mapping out the systems around it. So it really fits into this theme at the diff of designing not just for users, but the systems that sit around those users. So that's at 11 o'clock. You can tune in, see who's won, see the kind of responses. We've got Chris Grantham from IDEO. We've got our Circular Design Guide team. So definitely watch that one. It should be entertaining. And then finally at 12 o'clock, let me ask you this, Nick. Have you heard of blockchain? Do you know what it is?
Is this about your toolbox?
It isn't about my toolbox, no.
Okay,
it's actually...
I have heard about blockchain, but I've watched a few sessions in it. I still haven't got my head around it.
A lot of people have heard about blockchain. Hopefully tomorrow at 12 o'clock, what it is and its relevance to the future of the economy as a technology that many people are promising could enable a whole new kind of economy, will be revealed with a session about blockchain with Tom Harper at 12 o'clock tomorrow. So, yeah, plenty to catch up on as well. Make sure you check out thinkdiff.co.
There are just not enough hours in the day to watch diff, I believe.
Well, I'm a living testament to that, Nick, over the last 3 weeks, to be honest.
You are looking a bit tired, Seb. All this excitement and stimulation has got me a little bit peckish. I brought some food in, though.
Well, drink and food, you're spoiling me, Nick. You know, no one has ever done this in a diff session before.
Try one of these.
What is it?
Seaweed.
Oh, lovely.
I love seaweed.
Hope they got a good camera shot of that.
It's such an underrated source of food.
Very nutritious. It's
Yeah,
good for you, isn't it?
Full of fibre and other goodness. The Asians, like my mum's Chinese, the Asians go mad for it. It's very good for things like preventing heart disease, diabetes, and some even say even cancer. It's also very delicious. So Seb, seaweed pops up a few times in the circular economy. Has it come on your radar recently?
It's come on our radar recently because of a challenge that we ran as part of the New Plastics Economy initiative that we have at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. We ran a $2 million innovation prize, $1 million for designers. We ran with Open IDEO. And two of the top responses to that challenge used seaweed as a solution. So one came from Skipping Rocks lab,
One of our emerging innovators.
one of our emerging innovators of the Circular Economy 100 network. And they actually have two interesting things for this conversation. One is something called Uhu Water, which has actually been quite well shared. Hopefully some of our audience members may even know what we're talking about. But that originated out of them looking at the way in which nature contains liquids. So they started looking at marathons and all the cups and bottles that get used and ultimately wasted during marathons, because people were just taking one swig of water and running. And what they noticed is that nature contains it in membranes. They constructed a membrane out of seaweed. It's basically a blob that we, unfortunately,
I try to get some.
Yeah, out of keeping with this show, we should have one here.
They're pretty busy at the moment. Yeah, but
that we can eat. And actually, they've iterated that, and a new development in that project, and it's something called Delta, which was one of our winning results, and that's a soluble and edible sachet to replace. There are billions of single-use sachets in the market.
like the ketchup things and the
ketchup,
the shampoos.
some shampoos. In certain parts of the world, it's it's the cheapest, most effective way to get hold of these products in appropriate quantities.
Yeah.
And so this solution is being pitched to hospitality businesses, restaurants, as something that cuts out all of that waste, of which we know a lot of it goes in the ocean. And actually, another startup had a similar, slightly different take on the concept called EvoWare, an Indonesian-based startup, also emerged through the Circular Design Challenge, and they quite actively advertise it as your packaging solution gives you a nutrient boost. So seaweed is solution to so many problems.
Mushrooms and seaweed. Yeah, in fact, remember last year on the diff, we had the guy Bren Smith, the fisherman who was very disillusioned about the pillage of our oceans. And he started this new way of producing seafood called 3D ocean farming. I remember him saying, well, seaweed, apart from you can also use it as a fertilizer and as a biofuel, it sequesters 4 times more carbon than land plants. So I just think it's I think it might be a material for the future.
It's something to keep an eye on, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think another very underrated
now we've had seaweed and mushrooms.
Is insects. Well, I mean, it's certainly in sort of European, American
Have you got any
countries.
of them with you today, Nick? Or?
Well, it's funny you say that, Sam. Did you know that 30%
You're not going to make me eat one, are you?
of the world's population eat insects? Try one of these.
I won't.
Are you sure?
Are you going to make me eat an insect on air? That looks distinctly unappetising. If I'm honest.
Okay, maybe we'll have that as our sort of post-session snack. Right, insects. So I think this is going to be another case I've come across recently. It's a company called AgriProtein. So I was saying earlier, food waste, 30% of the food that we grow actually never makes it to the plate. So this company, it's a South African company. They have set up a factory just outside Cape Town. It takes in 250 tons of agricultural and processing waste each day. And they use an insect called the black soldier fly. And they hatch out the eggs, they get the larvae, and then just put it on this pile of food waste. And these larvae, their weight gain is about 100 times in about 14 days. And then they dry the larvae and they turn it into insect meal. And they use this insect meal for aquaculture, for pigs, for poultry, and for pets. And of course, currently, like if we take commercial aquaculture, for example, the main source of fish food is from fish meal. And they get that from, these trawlers go out far out to sea, they dredge these fish, and they're normally lower food chain fish, millions and millions of tons each year, and they take them out, and it's very, very wasteful. Of course, they use a lot of carbon to go and get those fish, and it does have an effect because these lower food chain fish, they're food for the high food chain fish like cod and tuna. So this insect meal means that you can really localize aquaculture food production.
I think when people think about food and agriculture, they don't realise the sheer volume it takes in terms of meal to get the meat that we're farming. I mean, these animals need to live off things, and when you talk about millions of tons of fish, it's
Well, absolutely. I mean, the livestock and the the sort of meat industry is an incredibly wasteful in terms of calories grown and then the conversion rate. It's incredibly wasteful. Something like every 6 calories that you feed a cow, only 1 calorie comes out.
Yeah.
So I think
This is an opportunity.
Well, it's an opportunity, and also
for business innovation.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, pigs and chickens just go mad for maggots. I know that you weren't so enthusiastic about eating that.
I'm not a chicken or a
pig.
pig.
That giant water bug, but to a chicken.
That's appetizing.
It's just protein. It's just protein. And funnily enough,
you think they don't really assess the particular appeal of it?
We eat prawns. Have you ever held up a prawn? And
I have.
It's very insect-like, but it's because it's.
Don't make me think like that.
Okay.
Well, Nick,
anyway.
we've got another audience question.
Oh, have we?
One that I would love to pitch to you from Rachel. So she asks, can you give me so we've got these audience members, I think that they're a little bit clued up on the circular economy, and they're saying they're trying to test us. So can you give me a good example of remanufacturing, but you're not allowed to use Caterpillar or Renault. Now, I know that it's East Coast is Seb's side, but we were having a chat earlier, and you have got a pretty nice example of this.
Yeah, well, Renault and cat manufacturing, they're the classic examples of remanufacturing. But let's just try and sort of, freshen it up a little bit and try something new. Okay, just to remind you, on the East Coast, and you have to intervene here because this is your area of expertise.
Absolutely.
So, East Coast, we're striving to keep products.
We've had the sharing, we've had the
products,
tool library.
So sharing, maintaining product, components, reuse, redistribution, remanufacturing, and materials, recycling, in use. So remanufacturing is about components. So there's a little startup in Holland called Gerard Street. So these fancy headphones you get, the ones.
So I've not got them, but I've seen people wearing them.
Banging sound quality. They're all sort of wireless, noise cancelling, all that.
Normally
all that
come with cargo pants. Yeah.
Exactly. So that technology is very much sort of tied in with sort of advances in materials and also digital. So as you know, the digital technology moves pretty quick, and so there are quite frequent hardware upgrades.
Yeah.
So what Gerard Street have done is they've designed a disassemblable. Actually, let me just show you this here. A disassemblable, high quality headphone set. They don't use glue, and if a part needs replacing, so you want to upgrade a part, it's very easy just to upgrade that, or if you need to repair a part, and so therefore you don't need to just have a complete new set of components every time you go for the upgrade.
Yeah, so you can stay trendy and drastically reduce your
trendy, but also stay with the latest advances in headphone technology. And then the other pretty clever thing is because these are very popular with students, of course, because students they like their music and they like their their gadgets, but these are pretty expensive. These type of headphones. So they offer a subscription model. You pay 5-10 euros a month, and then you can upgrade it whenever you want.
It's
or
another
repair it whenever you want.
example of subscription models, which we've had Splosh.
Yeah.
We've had bundles. Seems like it's a very versatile application. And I guess in your work as the case studies man at the foundation, you probably must see a lot of examples of these in different industries. This pay per use,
absolutely,
or subscription-based
the
model.
fast-moving consumer goods sector, the hardware, the electronic hardware sector, even clothes. There's a company. I've got a couple of kids. The kids, they grow real quick.
They do grow a bit quick.
After a month, 2 months, you have to change their shoes. Up to 2 years, I think there's 8 size changes. And so you're constantly having to change their clothes. Vigor, who's it's a company, actually they started off organic baby clothes, but the founder thought, okay, what am I actually accomplishing by this? You can create these clothes in a very, very low environmental impact way, but if they're going to be thrown away, what's the point? So she changed her offering to a subscription model, and so now you get like when your kid reaches a particular size, you get a package from Vigor, and then you use the clothes. When they outgrow them, you put it back into this nice reusable box. You send it back, and they refresh. So each set of clothes gets used about 9 times a year, and also they have various really good washing technology, so the clothes feel really like new each time you get them. So yeah, so the subscription model works across the board, all different types of products.
That's fantastic. We've mentioned recycling, which is
recycling.
We say circular economy is not just recycling. Sometimes we just describe it as the loop of last resort. Do we have any good examples of recycling innovation that really fits in with the principles of the circular economy?
You're right about recycling. It gets a little bit of a bad rap, but I think recycling plays an important part in the circular economy, because there are some products that, because of how they're used, the sort of hard-wearing environment which they're used, eventually they just, they can't be used again as products. And so what do you do with them? And two examples that I've been looking a lot at recently is vehicle tyres and commercial carpets. Vehicle tyre. So in the foundation, we deal with very, very large figures. We're constantly like 100 million here, 1 trillion here. So with materials and waste, it's kilograms. It's the weight. So I've invented a new way of visualizing. To get your head around these big weights. I've got this new unit called the ESB.
The ESB. What's the ESB, Nick?
The Empire State Building. Yeah. So one Empire State Building weighs about 350,000 tons, so like a third of a million tons.
So that's the actual weight of the Empire State
actual weight
Building.
of the structure of the Empire State Building, everything, all the furniture and everything, is about a third of a million tons. So each year, in America alone, 10 Empire State Buildings worth of tyres get discarded. Yeah? For the carpet...
the audience just visualising that.
It's about 300 million tyres, yeah? By the way, let's share this with you. This is a satellite image of the world's largest...
So what we're looking there is the black bit...
tyre dump.
That's tyres.
Yeah, these are all tyres. That's a satellite image.
Where is this?
That's in... I think that's in Abu Dhabi. That's in Abu Dhabi.
And there's obviously a picture in the corner that shows you
what
a man looks
like. Yeah, the guy just clambering over this. Yeah. And so,
Is he looking for his tyre?
He's lost his tyre. I haven't finished with that one. So it's a big...
Talk about needle in a haystack.
Yeah, so that's 10 ESB. For carpets, it's 5.5 ESB. So these carpet tiles. This is just the US. Yeah. So what do we do with all?
Sorry, is that every single year?
Every single year. So what do we do with all these? This material. What we need to do is we need to get it back into the production cycle. Yeah. But these tyres. So I think they're like 100 different chemicals in the tyres. It's got steel, it's got different types of rubber, it's got toxic chemicals. It's very difficult to get them back into the production cycle. Carpets the same. They've got the backing, which is often something like PVC or something hard, and then you've got the top. But a company called DSM Niaga, they've come up with a new process and a new material that does exactly that. So it takes a commercial carpet tile, and at the end of its life, you can easily separate the backing from the top. They've come up with some clever adhesive, and then you just put the whole lot back into the production process. So it's 100% recoverable, 100% recyclable, and I think.
And we're talking about quite high quality recycling, aren't we? Because of the purity of the material flow.
Absolutely, yeah. And you've hit on a key word there, purity. There's only a small amount of materials in these carpet tiles, but they've just done just like nature. You mentioned nature only uses 5 or 10 polymers. I guess they were inspired by nature to keep it pure, keep it simple. They actually have two products, but one of the products for particular use, the backing is the same material as the top, but it's just arranged in a different way, so it feels like a backing, and the top feels like a topping. But it's the same material.
So we're going to have to leave our audience shortly, Nick. But what I wanted to check back on is, have we covered the map? Has our compass successfully navigated
every corner of our map? Okay. Well, should we start on the East Coast?
Yes, that's where I always like to start.
So have we done anything here?
We've had the
Toronto Tool Library.
Maintain and prolong
bit of
and
reuse.
Yeah,
we
we've
did
had
Splosh. Splosh. Bit of reman with the headphones.
Yeah, the headphones.
The carpets.
Yeah.
Here.
And obviously we've got redesign in there as well, which I guess is central to all of this. In a lot of cases, it's a case of redesign.
Yeah. And then
and on the
West
biological
Coast.
circle, well, we've had your farming collection, your regeneration. Obviously, yeah, we've had a drink.
We've cascaded out, on the way the bread going back to the biosphere, we've cascaded out some other uses.
Well, that seems
Farming collection. We did the taco Ferrano. I think we've done pretty well there. We've got good coverage. Yeah. So should we call it a day?
I think that's great. I mean, I guess the audience might be wondering, where can I go to find more?
Well, you can go to the Ellen MacArthur website where you'll find 60 more case studies similar to this. And also we've got we'll be releasing over the next few months packages of case studies. We call them clusters of case studies, sort of under themes. We've already done US case studies. We've done Brazil case studies. We're going to do one on bio. Hopefully we'll do one on plastics, cities, and so on and so on. So check out our website or check out Circulate, our news portal, for those cases. We'd also love it if you could send in some cases to us. So if you come across any inspirational or innovative companies or projects that are incorporating circularity into the way they design or operate, then please send them in. I'd love to hear about them. So don't forget to tune in tomorrow to the results of the Circular Design Challenge, and then shortly after that will be the grand finale, which I think is a real highlight of the online year. It's been great having you join us. Seb, thank you so much for being my travelling companion. That's all for now. Have a great evening and see you again soon. Goodbye.